Hello and welcome to episode 218 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always, joined by Evan Silva, and it is time to get serious. Preseason games are about to get underway. Fantasy drafts are on the horizon. Almost makes you feel happy to be alive. Evan, what's going on?
What's going on? Just got done doing a news and notes show, so check that out. And now we'll be talking about fades, everybody's favorite topic. We get to be real negative on this one.
Yes, as Evan said, on today's show, we're going to talk about fades. In other words, players we are avoiding at their cost this season. Note that this is a little preview of Evan's annual Shy Away column, which is one of my favorite columns, which will be up in the draft kit in early September. But man, this is really hard. And as I was going through getting ready for this podcast, I actually don't know how Evan does it every year, because I think players, for the most part in season long, especially in tougher formats, are priced pretty efficiently. And there's guys that I don't like. Most of them are at the running back position. Some are at quarterback. It's been harder for me to find wide receivers that I don't like. But Evan, you've been really successful with your Shy Away over the last, 10 years or so. What's your process? How do you think about creating the Shy Away column?
Yeah, last year wasn't my best year, but it's pretty difficult. You have to really stretch to build, the bear cases for a lot of guys, and even guys that you like. Sometimes it's not all just, take this guy off your cheat sheet. It's, this guy is, his ADP is just a little bit too high for my taste. So it's a list of overvalued guys. There are some people that I think you should just scratch off your cheat sheet altogether, like Michael Thomas this year. But yeah, it's a mix of guys that, generally I don't want these guys to end up on my team. Sometimes they will end up just by necessity. And it used to be a Shy Away 40. Last year we only did a Shy Away 30. We'll probably do Shy Away 30 again this year. But yeah, often you do end up drafting a guy or two on this list, even though they're on this list.
Yeah. You can get priced out on guys, like the market can just go completely nuts. Like by the time September hits, CeeDee Lamb could be going like the middle of the second round. And I absolutely love CeeDee Lamb. It's just hard after we were getting him in the fourth round, like 2 months ago. Taking him in the middle of the second round, I think is tougher, and stuff like that is going to happen. Before we get into today's show, a couple things. First, preseason is here. If you're into God's game, aka preseason DFS, we are covering it as thoroughly as we possibly can. Top plays, depth chart, a show for each main slate. Head to the site for details on that. Second, if you have any ETR subscription at all, please be sure you get in the Discord. We are in there hanging out, talking strategy, conveying info, especially for preseason, especially for best ball, especially for props. There's a lot of really good discussion going on in Discord right now. If you have your subscription, the Discord access is free. Get in there. And finally, I must remind everyone that this show is indeed brought to you by our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They just launched another $5 buy-in best ball tournament. This one, $500,000 prize pool. If you have the draft kit, you're entitled to at least $10 for free on Underdog. Please take the free money, fire it at the puppy, the $5 buy-in. You can always upload our constantly updating Underdog rankings directly onto the platform. All right. We're just going to kind of go back and forth here with some of our fades, a few of them. We're not going to do all of them here, of course. First one is one you guys probably know by now. For me, it's Alvin Kamara. And I think Alvin Kamara's calling card, of course, is pass catching. Well, Drew Brees has had one of the NFL's highest running back target rates over the last 5 years. Taysom and Jameis Hill are 6-7 percentage points behind Drew Brees' RB target rate. Drew Brees annually had one of the NFL's highest completion rates. Taysom and Jameis, I think, project to be really low in completion rate. These historical baselines that people are using for Alvin Kamara, to me, are not irrelevant, but pretty close, because they're overwhelmingly biased towards Drew Brees' stats. And I know what people are going to say. Okay, fine. But the dude scores touchdowns. He's run for 43 touchdowns in his last 60 NFL games. Okay, but Taysom was top 17 in the entire NFL in carries inside the 5-yard line last year in a part-time role. And now he's going to play a ton. And also, speaking of touchdown opportunities, this offense on paper is really, really, really bad. Like quite bad. And I think it's going to be similar to the New England situation last year. They can squeeze out some wins with defense, offensive line, coaching. But no one in fantasy in New England was good last year. So I hate to bet against Kamara. He's the exact type of running back that I want, but at an ADP of 4th overall, it's a pass for me. As I said on the round 1 pod, I prefer the safety of Tyreek, Devontae, Ridley, Diggs at wide receiver, prefer Zeke, prefer Aaron Jones, prefer the big dog. So that's my case on Kamara. I know we've talked about this a ton, Evan. We don't have to go into it too much more, but Alvin Kamara would be my big round 1 fade this year.
Yeah, Jameis Winston, not a big-time check-down passer, and Taysom Hill, not a big-time short area touch passer. And those were two things that you could bank on year in and year out with Drew Brees. Now, I think with Alvin Kamara, what you would be banking on by using, a top 5 pick or, wherever you would get him, he's certainly still going inside the top 6 in most drafts, is, first of all, the Saints offensive line, where they're returning all 5 starters, and they're probably going to build their offense around that. And then also just Sean Payton's, they need to design their offense to get the ball to Alvin Kamara. I mean, Michael Thomas is out indefinitely. So that's what you're banking on if you're making a pick on, in addition to Alvin Kamara's talent. Sure. But situationally, that's what you'd be banking on, because you have to have at least some level of trepidation about this quarterback situation.
Yeah, in full PPR, I would feel a little bit better about Kamara. It's probably still a pass for me in the top 4. But yeah, Sean Payton has a lot of time to get ready, 6-7 weeks to prepare for quarterback and no Michael Thomas. And so we'll see what he comes up with, but I'm fine passing on it given the opportunity cost. Shy away for Evan, the guy we talked about a lot, and I don't want to go into it here, but Nick Chubb is one of Evan's big shy aways this year. He's going in round 1. Evan has him 22nd overall. Evan, do you want to say anything more about Nick Chubb? If you go back and listen to last week's podcast, you'll find Evan's full take on Nick Chubb.
No, yeah, you got to go listen to the second round podcast. This deal that the Browns signed him to, great deal for the Browns. I know you're not supposed to pay running backs, but I mean, they only made him the 4th or 5th highest paid running back in terms of annual average. I think that's, usually in these situations, the running back will get, he'll be the clear number 1 highest paid running back when he gets a deal like this, at this time of year. But he was not. I think it seemed like they really met in the middle. And so I think it was an excellent signing by the Browns. It also should incentivize the Browns even more to not put, their foot all the way to the gas on Nick Chubb, which is something they absolutely did not do last year. He only had 1 game of over 20 carries. We know that he is very limited in the passing game. I don't think he belongs anywhere near round 1. Yeah. And I still think he's going to have a good season, but he's going to live on efficiency, and he's going to be a disappointment in terms of fantasy. Look, he can have 100 yards. He could score a touchdown. He could catch 1 pass for 10 yards. That's a good line for Nick Chubb, and he still only gets you 18 points, in a scenario like that. We're looking for 20-plus point games as much as we possibly can from our first round running backs. And Nick Chubb just isn't going to give you that very often.
I think probably on the contract, one of the things the Browns could have said is, hey, we're not going to run you into the ground. We'll give you a contract that's good, but not great. And then you'll be a free agent when you're 29, and maybe you can get another contract. Most running backs don't get another contract when they're 29. But if they take it relatively easy on Nick Chubb, he sustains his health, maybe he can get another contract when he's 29. I'm sure that went into the negotiation there and factors into us in terms of usage. Let's get to another one of Evan's shy ways, Allen Robinson. And I don't have a strong stance against Allen Robinson. I just haven't been taking him a lot because I like the guys going around him better. So I'm kind of on board with this. Talk to the people about shying away from Allen Robinson a bit this year.
Yeah, that's the thing. And we were really high on Allen Robinson last year. I think I finished with him as the overall wide receiver 6, and he absolutely paid dividends. He caught a ton of balls. I just think that once Justin Fields gets in there, I think you actually want Andy Dalton in there more than Justin Fields for the case of Allen Robinson. Obviously, from watchability standpoint, win-loss standpoint, we absolutely would prefer Justin Fields. But once Justin Fields goes in there, I don't think they're going to be teeing up 40 dropbacks for the rookie quarterback. I think they're going to lean on David Montgomery. They're going to lean on, the expected hike in efficiency from Justin Fields and not dropping him back 40 plus times. They showed a willingness to do that with Nick Foles last year. And I think that they will be willing to drop back Andy Dalton that amount of times. And that will be good for Allen Robinson. But once Fields gets in there, I think we're going to see a lot more of a run-committed approach. And that's not going to be good for the passing volume on which Allen Robinson so much relies. I still think he's going to have a good season, but, I've got him around like wide receiver 15 now, and he always goes ahead of where I'd be willing to take him.
Yep, have no problem with that. In that kind of similar range there, a fade or a shy away for me would be J.K. Dobbins. And we know that Gus Edwards is going to play, and I think Gus Edwards is going to play a lot. I mean, the Ravens love Gus Edwards. They just gave him a $10 million extension. They didn't have to at all. I think the likeliest outcome for J.K. Dobbins is like 13 to 16 carries and 1 to 2 targets from Lamar. And so much like Nick Chubb, who Evan talked about, I mean, J.K. Dobbins needs a ridiculous yards per carry, ridiculous touchdown rate to get there. Now, there's not as much opportunity cost in J.K. Dobbins. He's been going late round 2, round 3, whereas Nick Chubb goes borderline round 1. But this is the kind of player who, if J.K. Dobbins beats me, it's fine. I prefer going Waller or Kittle or Lamb or Amari Cooper or Terry McLaurin or Keenan Allen in this range. Absolutely no problem fading J.K. Dobbins. If he shoves it down my throat with like a bunch of 14 for 120 in 2 games, I can absolutely positively live with that. So kind of similar to the Nick Chubb thing, Evan.
Yeah, he's sort of like J.K. Dobbins is sort of like the arbitrage Nick Chubb almost, and really the fact that you're down on him and, all the reasons to sort of bet against J.K. Dobbins just goes to show how egregious Nick Chubb going in the first round really is. Because you can essentially get a very similar situation player, very talented, in a very good, rushing environment, a full, like almost 2 rounds later in J.K. Dobbins. I'm not as down on J.K. Dobbins as you, but I totally understand the case against him. And I don't know, I've been trying to stay optimistic that he can get to like 30 catches, but I don't know if I don't even know if that's possible. I don't think Nick Chubb's getting to 30 catches.
Yeah. I mean, Lamar's throw rate at running backs is really low too. And so, yeah, it's not great.
And they just don't throw the ball very often as a team.
Yeah.
All
right. My next one pains me a bit because it's the guy that it's Mike Davis. And I always thought that Mike Davis could play. I joked a lot about 90% CMC stuff last year. I thought Mike Davis was a really good pass catcher and a tackle breaker. He weighs 220 pounds. But man, this is a 28-year-old who has played for 5 NFL teams. And now he's on a team whose run game has been broken for years. I mean, Mike Davis's career yards per carry is only 3.9. I think they like Quadri Allison a little bit in the backup role. And I think there's some chance that Matt Ryan is just like at the tail end of his career. So it's an easy pass for me on the artist formerly known as 90% CMC, Mike Davis. It's a lot betting on volume. I don't think the efficiency is going to be good at all. And I'm not sure that even the volume is going to be there all year. I prefer Miles Sanders. I prefer Darrell Henderson. I prefer the wide receivers like Diontae Johnson and Brandon Ayuk and Kenny Golladay, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. So in this range, I'm not taking Mike Davis, even though I was on him on DFS a ton last year. What do you think about Mike Davis this year, Evan? I don't think we've talked about him too much.
Yeah, I think I'm right in line with ADP. The thing is that Quadri Allison is just terrible. So, and then it's Javian Hawkins, who's like 180 pounds.
And Cordero Patterson.
Cordero Patterson, yeah. So we're talking about very weak competition in the backfield. And then, I mean, there within his range of outcomes is a season where he catches 65, 70 balls. So I'm not super down on him, but I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, this is typically, the profile of this player is a guy that you want to fade, that you don't want to be bullish on, really at all. I mean, but I don't know. He goes around the 4th, 5th turn. Yeah. But
that's where Miles Sanders has been sinking that low sometimes, and Darrell Henderson is there too. And I definitely prefer those 2 guys over Mike Davis. In that range, maybe a little bit earlier, DJ Moore goes, and you're going to upset some people here, Evan. There is a huge DJ Moore fan club out there, including our own Drew Dinkmeyer. Sounds like you're shying away a bit from DJ Moore, though. Talk to the people about that.
Yeah, a little bit. And, it's not that I don't believe in him as a player. It's the situation is a little bit concerning because Robbie Anderson has this, in place rapport with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold hasn't played good football really, consistently at any point in his career. And Terrace Marshall is coming on, and Christian McCaffrey is back, and the way that the way that Joe Brady used DJ Moore last year was not conducive to consistency. And he was the deep threat, whereas Robbie Anderson was getting the layup catches. And I don't know why they would change that. Mm-hmm. So those are the concerns that I have about DJ Moore. I have him as like a back end wide receiver too. I really like, his career trajectory individually, because he's been really good since he came in the league. He entered the league as a really young player. He's still really young. But I think the situation around him is not, it's going to put him in a tough spot to be able to continue to ascend.
Yeah. I'm kind of with the market on DJ Moore. I don't really have a strong take either way. I hate to bet against his talent. I think he's just an awesome talent. And I do think that getting away from Gaze is going to be big for Sam Darnold. So I'm pretty much in market with DJ Moore. I don't have a take there. I do have a take on Raheem Mostert. I am easily passing on Raheem Mostert. Have zero Raheem Mostert so far. And this is another guy who I really used to love. I mean, preseason absolute superstar. Like when I first started playing preseason, Raheem Mostert was the guy who was like the absolute man. But now he's a 29-year-old former special teamer. I mean, he can play, but I just don't see how he could possibly hold off Trey Sermon all year. There's just so much more power and juice and youth in Trey Sermon. Kyle Shanahan traded up to get Trey Sermon, and we have a ton of data. Jack has shown a ton of data that rookies are so much more valuable at the end of year when we need to win the money. I want to have Trey Sermon and not Raheem Mostert. They're going pretty close together in most drafts. So easy pass for me on Mostert. I take Trey Sermon over him every single time. What do you think?
I'm just in line with market on him. He's really, really explosive, and if he can somehow stay healthy, and I mean, his price isn't that bad. I think he's right around RB 29, something like that, some RB 25 to RB 30, somewhere in that range. And I do have Sermon ahead of him, but I think I have him like almost back to back. Yeah. So that's just kind of where the stance that I'm taking. I think this running game, especially when Trey Lance is going to kick ass.
Oh yeah.
And so I think that there are going to be games where they have multiple, RB2 scorers, or maybe an RB1 scorer and like a flex caliber scorer in the same backfield.
Yeah. Oh, they're going to run the ball so many times. It's your 500 rushes when you count Trey Lance's rushing also in there for sure. All right. Here's one that's going to raise some eyebrows. Evan, Diontae Johnson. Sounds like you're a little bit lower than market on Diontae Johnson. Tell the people about that.
Yeah, and it's more just a product of being low on the Steelers passing game. Diontae Johnson was very useful last year in PPR leagues because he was getting so many of those layup receptions. Mm-hmm. But, Juju can do that too. I think that Chase Claypool's role will expand. Now they have this first-round running back that, is almost like mandated by ownership that they pick this guy, and he's he's a big receiver, but he's a good receiver. 80 catches over his final 2 seasons at Alabama. He's gonna siphon away some of those layup catches. And just I think that they have to bring down their pass rate. Like they cannot drop Ben Roethlisberger back to pass as many times as they did last year, and it just the wheels fell off at the end of the season. Maybe they'll start off, when Ben's like in good shape early in the year, and it's warm outside, and maybe they'll start off playing well. But I think that Diontae Johnson, his ADP is like around wide receiver 22. I have him, I think, like wide receiver 29. I just think people are a little bit too bullish on him.
Yeah, I keep going back to earning targets on Diontae Johnson. I know he was bad in yards per target, and I know his ADOT was pathetic, but man, dude earns targets. Ben clearly likes throwing to him very, very, very much. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting. It's tough to decipher between the Steelers guys, but I think Ben has a real thing for Diontae Johnson. And I think Diontae Johnson is just good. But I hear you on like, they have to run the ball more. I mean, they can absolutely positively cannot do what they did last year and expect to have any semblance of a chance to win. James Robinson is an easy no-brainer fade for me. James Robinson, I don't think is going to be a real factor in the pass game, especially with Travis Etienne there. Urban Meyer is kind of a donkey. Urban Meyer and these coaches love Carlos Hyde. The Urban Meyer regime inherited James Robinson. Just an easy avoid in the 90s. Like, give me Michael Carter, give me Trey Sermon, even give me A.J. Dillon as an upside case over James Robinson. I just don't think that the usage is going to be there for him with Travis Etienne taking carries plus pass game work and Carlos Hyde coming in there and stealing stuff. Also, I'm just shocked that James Robinson is even going in like the 80s or 90s. What do you think about him?
Yeah, you don't really want any part of like an early down RBBC, timeshare with Carlos Hyde. I mean, that's not going to be fun for anyone, and then ETN just gobbling up receptions. I think that ETN plus Trevor Lawrence is kind of an interesting stack. You have the shower narrative, and then you have, if you could get ETN at a decent price, and sometimes he goes way too early, but if you could get him like 5th round and then come back and get Trevor Lawrence like in the 12th round, I think that's a nice little stack. Yeah, don't really want any part of James Robinson.
Yeah, and one thing about Travis Etienne too is you fill a running back spot with a guy who we think can catch 50, 60, 70, 80 passes, and so filling a running back spot with that means a ton in best ball.
Had 102 catches at Clemson and averaged over 10 yards per reception. I mean, he's really an explosive playmaker with the ball in his hands.
Next guy I had was Courtland Sutton, but we talked about him a bunch on the news and notes pod. Basically, easy case to fade Courtland Sutton. Very, very crowded. Judy, Fant, Hamler, Tim Patrick, Albert O. I mean, there's a lot of mouths to feed for a quarterback like Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater. And now we also have these knee issues with Courtland Sutton. Go back and listen to the last episode for a little bit more on that. Another guy we've already talked about, Evan, is an easy fade for you would be Michael Thomas. And there's a case out there. Some people think that, hey, I can take Michael Thomas in the 7th round, get him back for the stretch run, and I'll have a guy who can get a 30% target share in the fantasy playoffs. Sounds like you don't even have that bull case in the range for Michael Thomas, and you have him as just a pure fade.
Yeah, just in managed season-long leagues. Again, you can take him in best ball, but in managed season-long leagues, like you're not going to be able to survive the first 6 weeks of the season with all the important waiver wire runs, unless you have an IR spot. If you have an IR spot, this is a totally different conversation. If you don't have an IR spot, you're going to have to drop them. I mean, and drafting him in the 7th round, I think that would be absolutely egregious. I mean, that would be really, really bad. And there are no guarantees that he comes back and is effective. His quarterback situation is worse. He's DND for me.
Okay. Completely out. Last few guys here that we're going to talk about just quarterbacks. And I've thought a lot about how to attack quarterback position because in DFS, it's just changed a lot. And by the way, there's a new article up on the site right now that me and Leone worked on about how to beat the DraftKings Millie Maker. And one of the biggest changes, striking changes, is paying up at quarterback has actually become optimal on DraftKings, whereas it used to be paying down because these guys, these rushing threats, are so consistent and their ceiling is so high. It's really hard for pocket passers to pass them. And you can extrapolate that to season long as well. And so fades for me at the quarterback position are Justin Herbert, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. Let me start with Justin Herbert. Only a 1-year sample on Justin Herbert. I know he's shredded, but a 1-year sample on Justin Herbert where he goes nuclear for 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns in 15 games just as a stone rookie. Out of nowhere, he boosted his fantasy stats with an unsustainable 5 rushing touchdowns on just 55 attempts. He's going as the quarterback 7 right now. I don't think the ceiling is the same as the rushing guys, Josh Allen, Lamar, Kyler. I don't think the floor and ceiling is the same as even guys like Dak and Russell Wilson. And then you have the theoretical ceiling of the later round rushing guys like Jalen Hurts, Trey Lance, Justin Fields. So I know Justin Herbert was awesome last year. It's just really tough in today's fantasy game to pay it off when you're not a runner. And I think we could see some regression from Justin Herbert as well. Other two guys I'm fading, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, is the same case. I mean, they need outrageous efficiency. Aaron Rodgers, 48 touchdown passes on 526 attempts last year, 9.1% TD rate. I mean, his career rate is 6.3. He was at 9.1% last year. All-time leader in touchdown rates, Patrick Mahomes at 6.8. And so Rodgers isn't going to run. His TD rate's going to regress. Just an easy pass for me on Aaron Rodgers as his ADP has spiked massively. Tom Brady, same thing. He'd have to throw 40 touchdowns again to pay it off. Another easy pass for me. I'm looking for the ceiling, the rushing guys at the quarterback position this year. So I'm fading Herbert, Rodgers, Brady. And I get where they're ranked. I get where people are taking them. It's just like a strategy thing for me on these guys. Said a lot there. Any thoughts on that kind of mid-range of quarterback and how you're thinking about quarterback this year.
It was a rough listen on Justin Herbert, and not because I vehemently disagree with any of your points, but because I just started to feel bad for the guy. I mean, he's out there draped in acne. The guy's got pimples all over his body, and like he's balling out of control. They didn't even want him to play. Anthony Lynn wanted him to keep him on the bench all year. He's balling out of control, and now he's got to deal with your harsh criticisms.
Yeah.
Your points are all valid and well taken. I hope that Justin Herbert does shove it down your throat.
Yeah. I won the juke last year, the $400 buy-in on DraftKings that I won the tournament with Justin Herbert. So I like Justin Herbert, man. It's just from a strategy perspective, I think he's a pretty easy fade where he goes in season.
He can run a little bit. I mean,
yeah. All right. For more on fades, check back in early September. Remember, the season doesn't start this year until pretty much mid-September. Check back in very early September for Silva's fully thought out shy away list. That will be in the draft kit. If you don't have the draft kit yet, $34.99. Get in there. Comes with free money on Underdog. Comes with access to the Discord. A lot of value for just $34.99. I'll see you in the preseason DFS streets on Thursday night, man. Can't wait. Hope to see everybody there between the lines for a showdown preseason DFS slate. These guys that we're going to be playing are really something. I can't wait for you guys to see our top plays list. It's going to be guys that nobody has ever heard of. It's
Rico Dowdle season or what?
Yeah, it could be. It could be. He's in the mix. Okay. All right. For producer Luke. For Evan. I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.